Welcome back to Coffee with Developers. This time I'm here with Stian Standahl, who I met at the Trondheim Developer Conference. And we're talking about something that is in everybody's mind right now, which is LLMs, natural language processing, and actually chatbots, in AI chatbots. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what your role in that kind of world is?
Hello, everyone. My name is Stian Standahl. I've been working with chatbots even before the big LLM engines came out. So since 2017, we created a chatbot at my job here, Stikos. We created Norway's first HR chatbot. So what you could do, this was back in the days. So we started out with just a normal classical machine learning model. You could ask it questions regarding HR and problems around that. You could even give it commands. For example, we have a HR system. You could give the chatbot a command, say, "I'm sick today," for example, and it would register sick leave for today and let your boss know that you're sick. But this was before the big AI hype that came around the 2022, 2023. So we had to shut down that chatbot. But now we're moving over to trying to present our content, because we're a content house, our content through a chat dialogue. So you could ask it questions and it will present answers based on our data. That's a pretty normal setup for if you want to have a chat dialogue for your company. Yeah.
So you're using your own internal systems. What kind of format were they in, and did you have to convert them to anything else to make it into a machine learning model that actually can be used by a chat system?
Oh, in 2017, we had around 7,000 questions mapped up to around 700 answers. I think it was around that. So basically, it was a classifier. So it mapped up the questions the user had up against the answers it was going to make. And depending on the answer, it was either a command or a natural text answer. So if it was a natural text answer, we just presented it as normal. And if it was a command, we hooked up other pipelines and ran the commands. But it was at that time, it was no generative text generative models there. It was just mapping of questions and answers.
And this is where you're going now with more of a generative approach. And also, will it just be the data of your company, or is it also mixed with data from outside?
It's just our company, yes. So what we sell here at Stikos is laws and regulations for accountants and HR and organizations, private organizations around in Norway. So it's around the Norwegian legislations. So what we're trying to do is try to find, look up the answers. Well, I'll tell you the secret sauce. It's basically a fancy search engine, right? What we're doing is we have 4,000 subjects that we have made ourselves. We take each paragraph in those subjects and create an embedding using the ADA model from OpenAI. We save those embeddings in a vector database. And when the user comes in and does a query, we convert that query into embedding and do a search in the search engine. And then we take the top 10, for example. We have a dynamic threshold there, but let's say, just to do it simply, take the top 10, and we present those. We give those paragraphs to GPT, OpenAI GPT, and let that generate the answer and put in links and stuff like that. So we prompt for a natural language answer using our data.
So how does that work legally? I guess it says a lot of information there that is actually quite beholden to your company, and basically you run it through ChatGPT. Is there something that you had to limit to, or is this something that you had to fight for that you can't do it? Because that's a lot of people want to index their content, but they're worried to upload it to some random server in America, for example.
Of course, that's a great question. We had to look into this because since we own our own content, we had to look at the legal ramifications for our IPOs, our content. So we checked with our legal team, and they said that well, you have one. It's multifaceted. You have one facet. Should we upload it to the USA, or should we host it in Microsoft Azure in Europe, or how's the legality around that? And then you have the copyright, or what happens when we take our subject and send it to OpenAI. What the generated answer is that our content, or is it how does that work? So we had to go up the whole pipeline there. So basically in OpenAI and in Microsoft, the terms in Microsoft Azure OpenAI, the terms says that the content you send to their APIs are your content. But the generated answer is a shared right between us, the company, and OpenAI, right? But in the terms, they say that we waiver all our. You're allowed to use it for anything, sell it, do anything with it. So, but it's a shared ownership.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to make the generated text your own again, you have to write it on your own words, right?
Talking of which, when we discussed this at the party in the Trondheim Developer Conference, one of the things that I said on stage, and you very much agreed with, is that the language that a chatbot gives us back, if we just use ChatGPT, sounds super American and overly excited and overly positive. So what you said is like you're trying to get the Norwegian way of communicating into your system. How are you trying to do that, and what are the results so far?
Well, we're trying to tone it down a little bit. It's very what do you call it? A Californian Norwegian. So you have the very verbose, very grand words, right? But we're trying to tone it down and trying to present our data in a not that grandiose way. We're just trying to make it as precise as possible. What we're looking into is we know that the ADA model doesn't have that big of a Norwegian don't have that big of a Norwegian dictionary. Let's say that it doesn't know that many Norwegian words. So we can what we're looking into is in collaboration with the Norwegian technical university here in Trondheim. We're looking into using their NordGPT, which is a GPT model trained on only Norwegian, and only Norwegian books and texts. So we're trying to incorporate our Norwegian writing and Norwegian culture into both them embeddings to improve the search engine, and trying to generate a more better Norwegian answer for our Norwegian users. Yeah.
So the NordGPT system, is that available publicly, or do you need to have contacts in the university to access that?
It's not available as of yet. It's in the finalizing stages. So it will be available. I don't know how they're gonna make it available, but it will be available for the public around Christmas time. And we're really looking forward to trying testing that out with our basically the search engine part of the service we're making. Because you can see. Let's go a bit into details on how and what troubles we have around the search engine. Yeah. In Norwegian and also in German, we like to put words together to form a more what's called a compound word, right? For example, a summer vacation in both Norwegian and German they're put together, and Christmas vacation they're compounded together, right? So it put two words into one. It's not the same in English. So what we're seeing is, especially around the legal words and stuff like that, it doesn't hit. It doesn't. The search engine, the embeddings doesn't work properly, right? For example, let's take an example. A capital increase and emission is the same when doing stock, when working with stocks, right? But when they used the search engine and tested it out with our service, it couldn't differentiate between them. That's because capital increase is in Norwegian put together into one word, and emission is just one word, right? So it doesn't find even though we haven't written many subjects on it, it doesn't hit anything in the search engine around those topics. We can also see that some compound words that what do you call it when you bend a noun or have it in plural, for example?
Inflected.
Yeah, if you have it one word in plural and one in singular, some of the compound words aren't picked up correctly, right? So these are the ADO model doesn't have that big of a Norwegian vocabulary to support these types of search queries and embeddings, right? And this is what we're trying to improve with the NordGPT and a language model that has a bigger Norwegian vocabulary. I'm guessing it's the same problems around in German and other languages that aren't English.
Yeah, I mean, that's the depressing thing about getting all these AI wonderful things. Everything works in English, and every startup says we're supporting 118 languages, which probably means they tested two and they hope there's no like horrible things in the another answer. So it will be interesting to see. So the system that you're using from the university, you said this has been trained on books. Has it been trained on live data and social media data as well, like to get the slang words in and to get things in there that actually how people talk to each other in terms of sentence length and these kind of things?
Exactly which type of Norwegian books and text they're using, I don't know. I'm on the consumer side, so I don't know the nitty-gritty details around what types of texts they're using. But I know they're talking with many book publishing companies in Norway around using their books and data they have, and the university libraries and other companies.
Well, I assume that seeing that you have a very specialist content that basically it's an HR environment and you need to actually limit it to certain data sets there. Is there a way to do that with a proper prompt, or is this a way to filter that up front so you can use a smaller model, or do you just take the whole chunk and then filter it out in the outcome?
Oh, interesting question. We have tested out a little bit of solutions there. One solution we haven't tested out yet is to translate the incoming query into English, or before we send it to the search engine. And this way we can perhaps get a better a better search. You can actually hit you can actually hit the get correct search hits, because when you do a translation into English, it has a bigger English vocabulary, and you might get a better search hit.
Well, you get a search hit, and it's probably one. That's another thing that I criticize, that LLMs the way they are right now, or ChatGPT like that is right now, never gives you a non-answer. Instead of just saying I don't know, it gives you like random stuff back to basically hopefully it hits some answer kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So is this
yeah,
something?
yeah.
Is this something you found a way to avoid, or is this a problem that you're still facing with your integration?
Well, our answers has to be as close to correct as possible. We're trying to reduce the risk of answering incorrectly, at least. So what we're doing, we have a filter at the end. After the whole pipeline has been ran, we check the generated answer if there are links to our content, and how close the answer is related to the query. So those two things we check. If there are no links to our content in the answer, we just say we don't know, just to, because we want the user to be able to go in and look up the background information around the answer, right? So that's one thing we check. If the closeness, the threshold between the answer and the query is too big, we also say that we don't know the answer, because we want the query and the answer to be mapped, be as close as possible. Also, we check the cosine similarity on from the search from the vector database. How good was the search? Was it a 89% hit? Closeness in cosine similarity, or was it 60%? Or basically a coin toss. So we have some thresholds there as well. If it's a bad search, we don't want to present that answer. If it's above 89%, we go forward with generating the answer to the customer.
Seeing that you're running into a lot of issues with the OpenAI system and the ADA model there, why don't you switch to local hosting for all the things? Like, why don't you run your own models against the model that you have from the university? Do you see in the future that you will be independent from ChatGPT, from OpenAI at all, or is it something that is just too convenient to use?
Right now, we haven't got access to the NordGPT yet.
Okay.
We, as everyone else, have to wait before it's publicly available. But we're really looking forward to testing it. But it's a very convenient way, right, to use the APIs for the larger models. We can, of course, we can set up everything locally, but then we have to set up everything locally. Yes, I have to spend a lot of time doing that. We don't want to do that. We just want to use the API and get the answers and API calls from someone else hosting it somewhere else. Yeah.
I think the big problem is also, like, when you see systems like that in Germany, almost as much as like in the Scandics, that the market is really small. So like the big players basically don't care much about like supporting Norwegian languages, because the possibility to reach a market there with end users is rather small. So do you think there is a way to actually, is a chance for companies to do something local and actually take that way, or take that market for them, Is it something that you are considering, or is it something that you're already a position that you're in because you have that pedigree of being a search engine for these kind of HR environments?
Well, you mean if there's some that if we should train our own models? Is that what you're thinking about?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I mean, if the models coming from the states are not actually the languages, is there a chance that actually local models could become a local market? I mean, the NordGPT thing, or NordGPT, I can't pronounce it, from the university is a university product, but that could be a commercial product as well, right?
Yes, I think they will make it publicly available and commercially available for everyone. I don't know the business model, which business model they're running, but I think they're going to make it publicly available. I know there's some companies in Norway that have made their own models based on Llama, which is on Hugging Face, because they wanted, I don't know what they're doing with it, but they wanted to test it out, I guess, to see if they could make the models better in Norwegian. And I think it was the company Ruter that were trying to do something there, and the Norwegian University Library. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. So as somebody who worked on bots for quite a while, and it was just, I mean, they all were like a fancy lookup in a database and just gave you like humanish answers, you know, like back in the days, like what's it called? The first one, Eliza did, like asking more questions and these kind of things. What do you think about the whole AI takeover right now, and the clever bots that we have right now that are using the answers that sound very sensible? Are you worried that there's going to be a hype about it and it's going to go away again, or do you think this will be the interaction that we're going to have in the near future with every computer system?
Well, I've never been that big of a fan of a chat dialogue or a chat bot. I like the when you can, because what we want to do, right? What we really want to do is to get as much context from the user as possible and answer correctly for the user, right? But then we have to prompt for as much context as possible to get enough information to answer correctly. A chat dialogue with one input box doesn't prompt for a large or a bigger answer. It's basically just a dialogue. But if you wanna to use a chat interface for running commands, you have to know which commands it knows. So you have to somehow learn the user, teach the user which commands it knows. So it's a hard interface to get the users onboarded, right? You have to know what the chatbot knows, what it can do before you go in, right? So it's basically something when you chat with it, you have to learn during the chat what it knows and what it can do. So I think that's a bit of a problem. But let's say you don't use a chat dialogue. In our case, if we want to maybe get more context, a better answer for our users, we want a big text area. You could fill out your problem and describe metadata around the problem, which year it was, when, what I'm working as, and then you can generate an answer based on our content.
I guess there's a fine line being helpful and being annoying. Like if the chatbot keeps asking you more questions that you want to answer, you'll be like, let me describe my problem and then find something for me. Do you
Yeah.
think an integration in a backend system like a company chat or even the company emails would be a great way to teach these models more context, or is it just very much on the individual search what the context is?
I think let's say you have a website. I know Bing has integrated their chatbot into Edge, and you can ask questions about it on when you're on a website. Then you have a lot of context from the website that you can use and ask questions about, but you still have to know what it can do, right? Right now, I know that it can make good summaries from a website. I don't know if I can ask any more complex answers around the website, but it's still a learning curve, right? So you still have to teach the users how you can use the chatbot, and with a good UX that is not necessarily a chatbot, you can you can do that in so many other ways than through a chat dialogue, right?
So what is your preferred one? What I mean, you said already it would be great to have a text box where people can maybe document upload as well and analyze the document rather than just doing asking people to type something. Have you done user research in that? Have you done some testing with that, what people want? Or is it just a matter of like you're worried about that the chatbot wouldn't be good enough?
I am kind of worried that the chatbot ain't good enough. We're right now we're releasing our end product to our customers on our homepage. So we're gonna, throughout the next couple of months, learn what the users want and what the users prefer. If we're gonna maybe test out to do some A/B testing, if they prefer the dialogue or maybe a text area, and this is something we have to learn the next couple of months, basically. Yeah.
And I mean, an HR environment as an audience as well is not one that is most likely, I mean, I'm assuming here, but it's not one that is just jumping on change. Like, I think every time you change something in a search engine like that, there's a lot of backlash from people that like, why is it different right now? So do you think you could confuse end users if you with like, and by the way, we're AI powered now and we want you to train that thing? How can you handle that kind of problem?
Well, if I understand correctly, we this was a training of the users through the chatbot, or
No, the just offering the new functionality and telling people you have something new. Right now, every company says like we're now have an AI component of our thing. Do you think your audience is happy to get that, or would it be like a small amount of your people and say like, please give me the old classic interface?
it's probably going to be the earlier adopters that are going to pick this up, right? We don't. We're the people that are using our product as normal. They know all the shortcuts in the product, so they don't really need a chat dialogue to find stuff quickly. They know all the shortcuts. So this is more for the newer users that are coming in that don't know all the shortcuts, that are maybe looking for an answer and then not finding it. Then they have an alternative now to give them their problem that they're trying to solve, and come and find the correct paragraph in the correct subject in our content, right?
An onboarding tool for new users rather than already the power users and making their lives easier because they already know it.
Yeah, it makes it more available for the newer users.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea to make sure that your content gets displayed in a faster way for people rather than expecting people to spend a lot of time understanding your product. I saw it earlier. I used something in Bing and I typed something in the search, like my mouse, and I got it to do that. and the chat was basically giving me the same result as the first search result. And I'm like, why is that? Like, if I already get a new interface that is animated and tells me like, "Ooh, I'm cool," it shouldn't be the same thing as the first result had in the description of the HTML page that it listed. So the getting new people into it through an AI system should basically be a way to get people faster to the information rather than having to learn the system. Do you think there will be confusion though when the language isn't as they expect? I assume your whole product is in Norwegian, right?
Yes, everything is in Norwegian. So there is might be some confusion initially. The new users don't know the correct search terms that are, let's say, classical search engine has. So when they use embeddings, they can use other words and still get correct answers through the GPT interface. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty good way of getting to your content. But the older users, they know all the, let's say, the search words, so they don't really have to. They can find everything that they need very quickly without going through a chat interface where you can use other words, right? So it's pretty.
What's your tech stack like? What do you write your app in, and how do you work with them? Do you integrate in cloud systems or just in Azure, or do you do it by hand?
Our tech stack is we have a .NET Racer front end, which does a search through a search engine written in C++. Is pretty old, so we're looking into changing that out with our new embedding search engine. Maybe we'll see. And but the chat interface, was it that specifically you wanted to know about?
No, generally, just how do you talk to it? I mean, it's interesting that the engine is in C or in C, so that means there's an API in between. Do you talk through that layer, or do you do?
I was talking about our products that are not the chat interface now. So right, so the chat interface is Angular front end, a chat dialog. It calls into a .NET API. The .NET API converts the query into embedding using Microsoft Azure ADA model. And with the embedding, you do a search in Azure Cognitive Search, the vector database or search engine. You get a result, and we put that result into the Microsoft OpenAI service, which generates which streams the natural language text out to the front end. So that's the full stack, basically.
And once you get access to the Norwegian GPT, you can just switch that backend, or how would you access that?
Then we just switch out the convert query to embedding part with a different API call. Mm-hmm. But instead of going to Microsoft Azure OpenAI, we go to NordGPT API.
So to wrap up, like if somebody wants to integrate like you do and actually do something that is beyond just having a chatbot that takes the data from the wide internet, what are the biggest barriers you encountered, and what are mistakes that people should avoid doing that you had to do in your journey so far?
It depends on what you're trying to do. If you want a correct answer, if you must have a correct answer because the users have legal problems or anything like that, you have to have some fail safes and validation of the answers. So that's one of the bigger harder elements we have encountered from our point of view. But basically, if you want to hook up, make a ChatGPT interface, it's pretty straightforward if you don't need any validation, or if you don't need to easily plug and play different embeddings and stuff like that, you could pretty quickly set up something in Azure without doing much effort. It takes a day or two if you have a database ready. But if you want all the bits and bobs and be able to validate the answer on the way out and change the embedding service, you have to maybe spend a month or two setting up everything. Right?
If you had a magic wand to have one tool to make this thing easier, what do you think is a missing component that you now have to do by hand that a system like OpenAI should offer? Is it localization? Is it what would make your life easier in that whole process that you're doing right now?
You know what would be really nice if we could make our own LLM on top of existing LLMs, right? That would be great if we could take our data and combine it with other data we're allowed to use in Norwegian and send it to a LLM training interface and train our own model that knows our text and our words and what the words look like and stuff like that. That would be great. That's something I miss, because then you can make it specifically for your use case. You're on top of a bigger LLM.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's a question for the startups out there to actually help build a tool like that. I thank you very much. We're kind of like, we should be wrapping up because these things should be short. It's a super exciting thing, and I'm looking forward to see more what's coming in your way. Is there anything going to be publicly available that we can take a look at, or is it just a matter of like fixing the thing internally, or do you need access to your system to try that out?
To test out our system, we're publishing it around the first week of November. So it's going to be available through sip.stikos.no, sip with a ZIPP. And you have to do some registration to get access to it. You can ask questions in English or German if you want to, and get the answer in English or German. So that's a fun feature we got out of the box by using OpenAI. But I can send you links, and if you want to put it into the episode description or anything. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks so much. This was great. This was Coffee with Developers with Stian, and we learned about like what LLMs are about and how to actually localize them to different markets and what the challenges are to access your own older data with an LLM and a chatbot. And maybe chatbot is not the solution, and we have to find something new to use the information from LLMs. Thank you very much.
All right.
Cool.